Hello and welcome to the D1Baseball Podcast. I am not Michael Patrick Rooney, and you know what that means. It is time for roughly 37 minutes of college baseball purgatory. I'm your host, Joe Healy, sitting in for Runes as Runes kind of works his way back from traveling down to do a game in Starkville over the weekend. So happy to get a pinch hit at bat here. I am joined by my illustrious colleagues, Kendall Rogers, Aaron Fitt. We're here to chop it up on week 12. But before we do any of that, I have to remind you that this episode of the D1Baseball Podcast and every episode of the D1Baseball Podcast this season is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, which is your new home for Jordan Brand. Gear up today and take flight. Make your play in the latest head-to-toe Jordan gear for the entire family, available in-store and at academy.com. Unleash your greatness with Jordan Brand, now at Academy. All right, fellas, are we feeling fresh and recharged? Fresh Monday morning off a busy weekend of college baseball. How are we feeling?
So fresh.
We're doing pretty good. Yeah, a little bit of a long weekend, but yeah, I'm not sure refresh should be the right way to say it.
I'm refreshed. I was home this weekend. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Can we go an hour, 37 minutes today?
Kendall also has things like children that take up his time in a way that Aaron and I do not. I told Kendall didn't hear this, but I told Aaron before we started recording, I had a day that I've not had since I was probably in my early 20s. Where for no good reason, I promise on Saturday night, I went to bed at a decent, normal adult time. I woke up Sunday at 11:40 a.m. Like, I have not had a day like that in, like I said, since like my early 20s.
Kendall's face, he looks sick to his stomach right now.
Yeah, he's like, God, this is the worst. I don't know what happened. I woke up and was like, what day is it? like, I don't know.
It's like that Paul Rudd gif it's the Ryan Reynolds gif where he's like,
yeah, yeah. That like I said, I went to bed at a decent time. My allergies been bothering me, so maybe my body was just like, hey man, we need to work on some stuff. So whatever it was, well, yesterday I was rip roaring ready to go by the time I got up though. So I am also, much like Aaron, feeling refreshed. So let's get into it, fellas. Right. I've got a little game for us today, and Aaron will be dismayed to hear that it does not involve a point system. I tried.
One thing I asked for you.
I tried.
I want points, Joe.
Yeah, I understand. Trust me, I understand. Maybe I'll work on that for next time. Maybe this off season, actually, when our off season podcast, when we're all sitting around staring at each other, wondering what we're going to talk about. Maybe I'll come up with some games.
What's the ESPN show where they had? It's not First Take. What's the ESPN show where they'd had Around the Horn, where they'd have like the point totals? You go on.
Yeah. The little clickers. Yeah. We can do that. Might require a little more production quality. We're going to need Pat James to get on that. Yeah. Try to give us a little point total at the bottom that I can manipulate as time goes on. All right, so we're going to play a little game of we're going to call it hit or stay. So I'm going to give you two series results, and we're going to ping pong. So I'll go Kendall, Aaron, Kendall, Aaron, Kendall, Aaron, all the way down. And whose ever turn it is going to choose whether they want to stay on that series, which means I think that series was more impressive, or hit by taking the other series I gave you and saying it was more impressive. So it'll make more sense as we get going. We have to choose our first series though. So I'm going to go to Kendall to start. We're going to start in the Big 12. So Kendall, did you find more impressive or more interesting or whatever, Arizona winning its series with TCU at home, or Cincinnati sweeping Kansas on the road?
I'm going to go with Cincinnati sweeping Kansas on the road. I think we all have a lot of respect for the job that Fitz and that staff have done with the Jayhawks this year. So, Jordan Bischel and the Bearcats going there and sweeping them the way they did. Carrington Cross with 10 RBIs yesterday.
Went bananas.
Just had an incredible weekend. And so, the Bearcats surging right now. And that was a team that, if you remember back, we had them ranked, week 3? And, that was a club that had a lot of promise. And so, they're kind of getting their act together. And now they've really helped their postseason case. I think they'd probably be in the field as of today. So, big weekend for them. That stood out more to me.
Yeah, and so, it's not just the road sweep of Kansas. Like, Kansas is playing so like that. What Kansas was doing against K-State and what happened was not fake. Like, it wasn't just like, they had a really good weekend. That's a team that we all like. And so Cincinnati doing what they're doing, and you're right. You guys are going to have a debate on your hands when it comes to them come Nerdcast time this week. Aaron, go ahead.
So is that a hit or a stay? I don't understand.
Well, no, that's just to kick us off. So this is good. This is a good segue. So now we've got Cincinnati over Kansas on the road. You can either stay with that series if you think that is more impressive. You could give your own take on it, or you can hit by saying it's more impressive. USC got a series win over UCLA at home, ostensibly at home, more like neutral site against UCLA this weekend. So what do you got?
I am going to hit because I want to talk about the Trojans. Hit me, coach. Listen, this team has won 8 straight series, guys. I mean, that's pretty darn loud. And on top of that, I think they've won 11 out of their 12 weekends this year. They only had one losing weekend. That was they got swept by Oregon pretty early in March, I believe. They are in the top 25 now, which they certainly deserve to be, in my opinion. They've had a really good, consistent year, and there's some quality. There's some meat on that bone with the UCLA series. I mean, they won a series at Penn State, who's solid. At Indiana, who's solid. I mean, at Michigan, and all those teams are like, they're probably none of those are going to be regional teams, but they're all like solid mid-tier Big Ten road series wins for a team that plays its games in Orange County at home. It's just a super impressive. And I thought, I like UCLA's team a lot. And I thought this is essentially a neutral site game, in Orange County. Both these teams are busting down there. And I picked UCLA, and that's one of the few that I missed this week. I had the Fitt Ducks had another good week, but hat tip to USC. I do think that their starting pitching, the 2 Cadens there at the top, gives them a nice floor most weeks. And their offense, I just think is maybe kind of quietly been a lot better than I expected it would be. And I don't know how other people expected their offense to be, but I mean, they're just very competent in a lot of areas. They're very well. I mean, we all knew Andy Stankiewicz could really coach, and we've seen that. I think they're just a very good club.
Yeah, I think the optimism that we got, kind of the tail end of USC's time in the Pac-12 was, they had a near miss with regionals, and I think we were all kind of thinking, hey, you know what? Like, this is headed in the right direction. Be patient. This will pay off. And lo and behold, here we are with USC at this point. Like, it would take a collapse for them not to end up in their first regional since 2015, which is an incredible achievement for that staff. So now, Kendall, you can stay with USC and UCLA if you have a take you'd like to give on that one, or you can hit and take Oklahoma over Ole Miss at home.
It's a good game, Joe. I like this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? I'll stay. I feel like we don't do enough USC love. Yeah, I thought that was a really impressive series win for them. And I think, a lot of people, I've had a few like Florida and A&M fans, and I mentioned so far this morning on the rankings, well, how is USC in over us? And I do like the idea of rewarding consistency. We talked about this last night on our rankings call, but to win 8 straight series, I don't care who you're playing. That's incredibly impressive. They played a pretty solid non-conference schedule. They got some really nice, weekend wins in conference. Caden Hunter and Caden Aoki have done a really nice job in their weekend rotation this year. Augie Lopez had some big hits for the Trojans over the weekend against the Bruins. So the thing that's really interesting about USC, and I don't think we as a staff have really talked about this enough, is the elite coaching staff that they have. I mean, you talk about Andy Stankiewicz, but I mean, let me name off the assistants on the staff: Sergio Brown, Sean Allen, and Travis Jewett. I mean, that is an elite staff. I mean, Big Jew from his time at Vanderbilt and Arizona State, obviously Washington State. Sergio was kind of the architect behind a lot of those great Fullerton teams on the recruiting trail. And Sean Allen was an assistant of the year at D1Baseball at one point. So, I mean, I think, one, what they've done is impressive, but 2, like, give the staff a lot of credit. That's a really good staff that Andy's put together, and they're doing a great job.
Not enough people are talking about Sax Matson for having one of the great names in college baseball. One of their relief guys. That's all I got on him. He's got a great
Sax Matson.
Sax Matson.
Is he? I wonder if he's related to. Remember Sean Matson pitched for Harvard?
I do. Yeah,
I wonder if that's any relation there. I mean, they're no Sean Meth in terms of names, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, you do, right. Joe. You did ask about their postseason chances, or you did say something about their postseason chances. Mm-hmm. They went up 9 spots over the last week. Wow. They're actually sitting at 29 right now. I mean, USC is a slam dunk postseason team right now.
Yeah, good for them. Like, Really, really impressive stuff from USC. And this early aughts college baseball fan loves seeing USC back in the rankings.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah,
it
was funny, like talking about, we bring in USC or Miami last night. It's like, what is it, 2005? Like it's,
throwing it back.
Let's talk about Long Beach while we're at it. Let's bring them in. All right, Aaron. So you've got, USC, UCLA, and, feel free, like, doesn't mean you have to talk about them again, but, if you do think it's more impressive, say so, and then we can just pivot. Or you could stay, or you can hit with Vanderbilt over Alabama.
I mean, I'll go ahead and I'm going for that 21, Joe. I'm gonna take the hit here.
Sure.
Vandy. I mean, they're just it's just an interesting season for these guys. I'm trying to figure them out. I think we all are. I think basically it's just like most SEC teams where they tend to win their home series and lose their road series. That's just kind of how the SEC is. They did now have a very impressive road series sweep of Florida back in April, early April. And that was kind of before Florida had figured it out, but still that counts. I mean, that's a good road series win for Vandy. But otherwise it's been, they've done a good job protecting their home field. And that's what they did this weekend, 2 out of 3. And, did it with some offense too, guys. They scored 12 runs in the Friday win and 9 more Sunday in the rubber game. I mean, I think we all like Alabama's team okay too. I mean, Joe, you made the point last night in our top 25 discussion that Alabama doesn't have a lot of impressive series wins. Really, was it besides the Missouri series win? Do they have? It's just the one series win against Oklahoma, right? It's
and A&M. But the point was like, other than Missouri, they don't have a series win in the SEC since late March. Like they've basically gone more than a month without winning a series against someone other than Missouri.
Okay, yeah, which will happen in the SEC, but still, and again, part of that is we had 3 of those 4 weekends were on the road for Bama, and so that's just kind of the way the schedule crumbled there. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, I think I still believe that Vandy has the pitching, as we've talked about a lot on the show. I think Vandy has the pitching that kind of separates them from a lot of the league. But also we've seen plenty of flashes now of the offense being plenty competent, and hitting for some power, despite, all the folks out there wondering about the punch in that lineup. We'll just put it that way. But I mean, our man Braden Holcomb had a couple home runs. I mean, that's a guy that it's just, despite maybe the flaws in his game, he's a difference maker with his strength. He probably, just plain needs to be in that lineup and giving them that punch. I think that changes the complexion a little bit. But 4 home runs in that game and on Sunday, and it just shows us this team is a little bit more multidimensional maybe than it gets credit.
I want to say Vanderbilt tweeted out that Brody Johnson hit a ball 114 over the weekend off the bat. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty impactful.
Yeah. Braden Holcomb, by the way, hitting something like 350 in SEC play. So he has really been swinging it well and has been a game changer for them. Real quick, we're going to swing it back to Kendall here in a second. But first, I have to remind you about one of our other sponsors here at the D1Baseball Podcast, and that's Tecovas Boots. Whether it's the leather in your glove or your tailgating chairs, baseball people know that quality matters. That's why we love Tecovas Boots. Born in Texas, just like Kendall and I, handcrafted with over 200 meticulous steps and comfortable from day one, they're perfect for wherever the college baseball season takes you. From road trips to rivalry games, post-game celebrations, or just everyday wear, Tecovas Boots are made to go the distance. Find your perfect pair today at Tecovas. All right, Kendall, so you can stay with Vanderbilt over Alabama, or you can hit with Miami over NC State.
I'll go with Miami over NC State. Obviously they had the series finale of that canceled because of rains. But, I mean, I think if you look at Miami, the job that, JT Arteaga has done, I mean, we talked about this last week on the weekend preview podcast. But, this was a team that was kind of left for dead at the middle of the season. I mean, they were kind of in the same boat as teams like A&M, to where they were so far behind the pecking order. You just kind of wondered, like, do they have the pieces to kind of turn this thing around? People are already talking about, potential coaching changes into the year, and all of a sudden this is a slam dunk postseason team. And frankly, a team that we kind of hated to leave out of the top 25. I mean, we ended up putting USC in, but I mean, Miami had a great case. to be in there, given its ACC record. But the guy that just continues. It feels like every single weekend that Miami wins a series, this guy pitches really well. And that's AJ Siskar against NC State's potent offensive lineup over the weekend. 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, allowed just 1 run, by the way, unearned in 6 2/3 innings. He just continues to have consistent start after consistent start, and that's kind of been the recipe for success for them. It feels like they've pitched at a pretty high level over the last few weeks, and that's a big reason why they're surging at the right time.
Yeah, they definitely started playing better, but we were looking at the resumes last night as we were trying to weigh USC versus Miami, and one of the things that ended up knocking Miami out of this and us going with USC is just that Miami did have a stretch where they lost 5 series in a row. But in hindsight, it was a loss to Florida State, a series loss to USC. It was a series loss to UConn, who was struggling at the time, but now obviously he's playing great. So it's one of those teams that you look back on it now and you're like, oh, actually, they were probably better than we thought all along. Now, they are playing better now, there's no doubt. But they probably also were just better than we were giving them credit for when they were fighting it early in the season.
I mean, it was, at Florida and at Wake were the other 2 in there, along with UConn, Florida State, and at North Carolina. So that's a tough stretch. Now, that said, it's also a team that we talked a lot about heading into the year, had a ton of turnover. And so, I think it just took a while to gel because they just had so many new guys, and it just has gelled. And now the last 2 weeks, I mean, we're talking about high-end, really the last 3 weeks, high-end series wins with NC State. Well, NC State, Georgia Tech, and Duke are what I have in mind, but they also swept Boston College on the road in there. So good stretch, really good stretch. They're playing good ball, and they're certainly headed toward the postseason.
All right, so let's, Aaron, you can either stay on NC State or Miami over NC State and maybe talk about the NC State of it all if you stay there, or you can hit with Washington with a road series win over Iowa, which has kind of opened up the Big Ten a little bit.
Boy, yeah. Let's talk about that. I mean, gosh, all of a sudden you look up and Iowa's still in first place, but RPI is what, 60, mid-60s right now, and Washington is almost caught him in the RPI, 72, and now has a head-to-head series win. And so you wonder, is it possible, by the time the dust settles here, it'll just be the top, the 4 West Coast teams in that league will be the regional teams? I mean, I don't know. Right now, I mean, this Iowa did need to win this series, I think. I mean, it's, to really feel good about it. Now, I do wonder. I mean, it's nice that they won the series finale for Iowa. I think that was certainly important. But if they win the league and it's a mid-60s RPI, then what? It's going to be a very interesting test case. Very interesting. They could still get in.
I think they got to be in. I think if they finish that high and they had an RPI like that, I think they would have to be in.
Yeah, especially if it creates such an interesting dichotomy. And Mark, if he were on this episode, would remind us that teams get bids, not conferences or whatever. But it would be, I feel like, because the committee's made up of humans, it would be a tough pill to swallow to have Iowa out, who won the league, and then have 3 others that finished behind them in the field, and at least one of them hosting, right? Like one of Oregon, UCLA is probably going to host. So, and then if Washington gets in, it's really kind of muddies the waters. But Washington, by the way, will have opportunities. They've got Oregon on the road this coming weekend, and they've got USC at home to finish the season. If they win those 2 series, which is of course a long shot to win both of them, but if they do, they probably play their way in, honestly. So really good job by that.
By the way, those 4 those 4 West Coast teams in the Big Ten are now 64-32 in conference. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and something like 52-20 against the more traditional Big Ten teams. It has just been a total, Runes has harped on it, and rightfully so. This should be a wake up call for the rest of the Big Ten. Hey,
absolutely.
It's one thing for Oregon to be running over you because, look, they've been rolling, but to have USC come in and just beat the brakes off the rest of your conference is not necessarily a good look for the league.
Yeah, and one more thing I would add too, not to get away from the game here, but one more thing I would add too is Michigan getting that series sweep over Ohio State to improve to 14-10 in the league and get up to 52 in the RPI. Yeah. Keep an eye on the Wolverines. They're trending up a little bit here as we get to the final couple of weekends of the regular season.
Yeah, hanging around.
All right, I can't think of 2 series that make me think of Kendall Rogers more than the 2 I'm about to give him. So you can stay with Washington over Iowa, or you can hit
Probably not.
on UC San Diego, winning a series on the road against UC Irvine. Let's have Kendall Rogers written all over him.
You know what? I'm going to go with the Tritons.
To
make this Tritons related, by the way, just to throw this in there, I did get to see former Triton Anthony Ianson over the weekend against A&M. He looked awesome. 14 strikeouts. We'll talk about that more a little later. But yeah, how about the Tritons? Eric Newman and company, they did a really nice job over the weekend. Looking back at the series opener, they won 19-4. Gabe Camacho had a really big weekend for them overall. Michael Crossland in that 19-4 game had a really big night. So, this is a time of year to where, especially if you're a Big West team, to where these losses like that can really hurt you. And for UC Irvine, this is a tough series loss. I mean, they were in a really good spot from an RPI standpoint. They were in the top 11. That puts them in a really good spot for hosting. We had them as the number 8 national seed last week. All of a sudden now they're down to 18. And gents, they still finish with 3 opponents with RPI. 6 of the games are against RPIs around 200 or higher. And the last one is 3 games. It's Cal State Fullerton at 138. If their RPI is sitting at 18 today, I do not see a pathway to being a top 20 RPI team. So that is where a series loss like this really hurts them. But give the Tritons a lot of credit. They played really well over the weekend. The pitching was strong. Nick Gregson in the series clincher, 5 1/3 shutout innings. And then Spencer Side comes out of the bullpen with 3 2/3 shutout. And it is not easy to shut down the UC Irvine lineup. So kudos to UCSD. See, I was ready for that.
Well done, Kendall. My goodness. Standing O. And yes, speaking of standing O's, this will be a reference that only a narrow portion of our audience will get. But this reminds me a little bit of when you go to a musical or what have you, and you open up the little booklet they give you, and the first page is so-and-so is playing the role of character X today, right? As the understudy. The UCSD this season is playing the role of Cal Poly, which is that their RPI is nowhere near good enough to be a postseason team, but they are good enough to ruin everyone else's postseason chances. And that's kind of what they're doing these days.
They're like the Texas Tech of the Big West.
Yeah, Texas Tech is doing it in the Big 12 right now, just making things difficult.
Yeah, they did it to Santa Barbara last week too. And I just think with honestly with their veteran pitching, I mean, Kendall mentioned a few names there. I mean, Matthew Dahlquist and Nick Gregson are both, experienced senior guys with, low 90s and some pitchability. And you got Side coming in after him, Spencer Side, who's just like another senior lefty, weird arm slot guy, get it up to 92. I mean, they have guys that can give you a hard time. I think it's a good pitching staff. And, that again, kind of gives them a little bit of a floor there on weekends. Now that they've found their rhythm, I think they're very dangerous.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder too. I mean, obviously this is another discussion, but it makes you wonder too, if they have a guy like Ianson back for another season, I mean, how many more games does UCSD win in conference if Ianson's, pitching for him still? So just kind of something interesting to think about.
Yeah. It feels like they'd certainly be in the mix. All right, Aaron. So you can either stay with that or you can move on and talk about and hit FSU over Clemson.
Wait, so we give me the option of UCSD and Irvine, and homie gets to get FSU versus Clemson.
I should have. Look, here's the thing.
You're just biased for Aaron.
If I were a pro like Mike Rooney, I would have on the fly switched up the order here to give Kendall a little bit better options and saved the UCSD, UC Irvine for Aaron. But
I think it was.
There's no way that Aaron would have rattled off UCSD and Irvine that flawlessly. Zero.
Well, yeah, nobody stalls. Nobody stalls for 20 seconds while they frantically look up box scores like Kendall. So that was very well done by you. You're a true pro.
Now, in fairness, I was just going by the list I had written down. I was just going down the list, and we will continue to do so. Aaron, so do you want to stay?
Yeah, no, I'll hit
that West Coast matchup. Okay, you're going to hit with Florida State and Clemson.
I already said my piece. See, that's a real pro move. I slide in there, say my piece. Don't even have to stay.
Sure. Yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, this was a big, obviously, showdown series between two teams that started the week in the top 5. And, I just think it's, again, kind of felt like home team, holding serve. Clemson, I mean, again, give them credit for the way that they fought in that middle game. Cam Canarella show, doing all the crazy things that he can do. It's stealing the home run and then hitting the little league 3-run go-ahead homer, the 2-run triple and then an error to score him. They're still always tough, and even on Sunday, like they wouldn't go away for a while, and then Florida State just kind of pulled away late and piled on, which, I mean, Florida State's offense is, once again, I mean, it's not the names that they had last year. It's a lot of new names, but gosh, I mean, they can still be very scary. It's just still Florida State. I guess this is the best way to put it, but I mean, there's firepower, there's athleticism. I mean, with Gage Harrelson and obviously Alex Lodies, who can do everything. And, Max Williams has power and speed. And, I mean, it's just Drew Farrow is some pop and some speed. I mean, they've got guys who are multidimensional here. And certainly, the freshmen, when they're going good, Hunter Carnes and Miles Bailey, I mean, big physical, scary guys. And so like on Sunday, they kind of had all of the pieces working offensively. Still would like to see more consistency from them in the rotation. I mean, Wes Mendez, another kind of meh start, to put it kindly, not a very good start. Joey Vellini was very good, and Jamie Arnold was very good. So that's, I still think that trio has a higher ceiling than most weekend rotations. So you combine that with the ceiling in their lineup. I mean, there's a reason they're ranked number 2 in the country right now. It doesn't necessarily feel like quite a number 2 in the country resume, but I mean, they've been very good for the most part, and I think they're very talented. So, and other teams have lost. So here they are, number 2.
Do we have pretty serious concerns about the bullpen at times with this team in terms of winning a national championship?
Yes, that would be the concern.
Yeah, I would say so.
Like I still think with Clemson, the concern is the rotation. In Florida State, the concern is the bullpen. That's where I come down.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I struggle with how much is that the quality concerns or just the overexposure concerns. I think that a lot of that's what I remember last year in Omaha, Florida State. It just felt like, guys were getting used 3 games in a row, and it just felt like, okay, if we've seen everything this guy has to offer, certainly the batters in the batter's box have, and have a good feel for it. So that will be interesting to watch moving forward. All right, Kendall, I'll make it up to you. Here we go. So you can stay with FSU Clemson if you've got more to say there, or I will give you the option of 2 SEC series. So the staying would be FSU over Clemson, or you can hit with either Auburn over Tennessee or LSU and A&M. A&M over LSU, obviously.
Yeah, I'll just go with A&M LSU because I was there.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway in the series is I thought LSU got a little too creative yesterday in the series finale. I think if you look at the way they managed the end of that game, I actually thought Chase Shores looked really sharp. That was a guy that, when he was starting for LSU, the command just wasn't there. He would often miss to his glove side with his fastball and his slider, and I thought he actually commanded the ball pretty well yesterday out of the bullpen. But at the end of the game, every single time Jay Slavolette would come up, they would go to lefty or try to go to lefty. And eventually, they just had to turn the game over to Cowan. Well, it ended up getting the A&M ended up getting the matchup they wanted with Sorrell against Cowan. Earlier in the game, Sorrell had hit a ball to the wall. This time, he hit a ball over the fence for a 3-run home run to win the game in the bottom of the 8th to give them a 6-4 lead. So, I think for LSU, offensively, they didn't do a lot for me over the weekend. I think you do have to give A&M's pitching some credit. A&M's starting rotations actually turned out to be pretty good. I mean, Prager's metrics have been better the last couple of weeks. The fastball actually bumped 93 over the weekend, which is, it's a development because I think every single time I've seen him or watched him this year, it's been 89, 90, bumping to 91. So for him to bump a 93 early in the outing, maybe he's getting in a groove here. Justin Lampkin threw well for A&M. Miles Patton. It was kind of funny. I was talking to Jason Kelly after the game yesterday because I was like, man, how in the hell does he get so much soft contact? And he's like, there's just, he's like, with the way he pitches and how quick his release is, there's just a little bit of deception there where the hitter's kind of thinking twice about what pitch is coming, and that split second really helps him out. But he kept LSU's lineup off balance. And so, A&M, they are trending up. I mean, for Jay Slavolette to finish the weekend, I think he was like 1 think he was like 1 for 15 or 1 for 14, something like that. And for them to win that series actually tells me a lot about A&M and their ability to overcome that. And so I still feel pretty good about LSU. I mean, Anthony Ianson, we talked about him a bit ago, but he was outstanding. He was actually still up to 95 on his 107th pitch the other night. He made himself some money. And so obviously a big series winner for A&M. I think if A&M loses yesterday, I mean, you're in a position where you're going to have to sweep Missouri and probably win 2 out of 3 or at least win a game against Georgia. Now they have a little bit of leeway going into that Missouri series. So, yeah, that's a wrap on College Station.
Yeah, I'll give a word in here for Auburn and Tennessee before we get to the last choice that I'm going to give Aaron. There's just we've talked about it a ton this season, but there's just something different about this Tennessee team, and there are some things they don't do as well, but also just I would have never guessed they'd lose 3 home series. Like, I mean, if you'd have told me to rank the most difficult places to play in the country, like Lindsey Nelson, or as we have to call it, Leslie Nielsen Stadium, is like up there. Like, it might not, if it's not 1, it's 2 or 3, right? Because it's just such a difficult, like the fans are on top of you and it's loud and it's sold out every game, like all that stuff. And they've lost 3 home series there, which is just hard to fathom. And yes, they won a game in this series, the resumption of the game that got delayed, but delayed overnight. But Auburn just outplayed them all weekend. Like that. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. Is that, Auburn got good starting pitching. Sam Dutton was very good again. They got good work out of the bullpen. The offense was all over Tennessee pitchers not named Liam Doyle for the most part. A really strong weekend for Auburn, and now Auburn's in a situation where is it a top 8? I mean, they're probably going to have to win some more games in league, but the RPI is right where it needs to be. That's really interesting. Auburn I thought they'd bounce back this year, but I have to admit Auburn's, in large part thanks to the freshmen just being so ready to be instant impact guys. Like, they are better than I anticipated them being. And this weekend was just another example. Yeah.
And I'll touch on this as well, because I think you're right about where they are. I mean, when you win a road series, it really kind of, it upsets the apple cart, as far as like your projection, and like
supercharges your projection.
Yeah, we had kind of expected that they would lose this series, maybe get a game, and like we were kind of projecting a roughly 500 finish. Now you win this series, you're 13-11 in the league. You have South Carolina at home, sweepable. Certainly, you expect them to win 2 games there to get to 15, maybe 16 heading into the last weekend at Ole Miss. So like there's a path they could win both those series. They get 17, 18 wins, and then against the hardest schedule in the league, it's a top 8 national seed with series wins on the resume, a sweep of LSU, a series win against Alabama, a road series at Kentucky, and a home series against Vanderbilt. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there. Very impressive resume. They've won against Oregon State, a single win. So yeah, I like what they've done. And I just wanted to shout out Ike Irish real quick. We had a discussion in one of our many group chats this weekend about, is Ike Irish the best hitter in the SEC? I mean, I'll put it this way. His numbers he's got a 1,300 OPS in conference, with 9 home runs, and another good weekend for him. Just really having a kind of a quietly excellent, because he missed a little time early, but I mean, since he's been back, it seems like he's been just kind of a force. He's been the guy they thought he would be. And, with the freshmen, I mean, Rembert and Freilich have both been awesome as well in conference, really good. And Bub Terrell as well. I mean, all those guys have been very good in the league, but especially Rembert and Freilich. And so that just gives them like real star power, and I know a couple of them are younger, but like they're all stars, and Irish has certainly played like the veteran star that we thought he would. And it makes them really dangerous.
Yeah. And Sam Dutton as well had another great start over the weekend. I think it was 1 run and 6 2/3. And guys in conference, I mean, he's down to a 2.83 ERA, and teams are hitting 213 against him in the SEC.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I was talking about Sam Dutton on Weekend Waypoints this weekend on one of the episodes. And the funny thing is, somebody mentioned, LSU sure would like to have Sam Dutton. And I'm like, yes, you'd like to have a quality arm like that, but also he'd still probably just be the Sunday starter, right? So like he actually, he'd be more or less kind of in the same situation he was always in at LSU, which is kind of like fighting for the back of the rotation. So, it really has been a kind of a positive all around. Like, yes, LSU would like to have him, but he would be marginalized a little bit in that rotation in a way that he's not been with Auburn, where he's been the guy. All right, Aaron, last one here. You can stay with either of the series, LSU, A&M, or Auburn, Tennessee, or you can hit with Arkansas sweeping Texas.
Now, once again, I cheated and already got my piece in on Auburn.
Yeah.
So I'll hit, and I just want to say for a second here, Coach, I appreciate the pen click. It's like your Tony Reale button. You're like, we're going to switch topics here. That's good stuff. Right. Good stuff.
Subliminal.
Yeah. So we kind of identified this series as a landmine for Texas. I don't know if you guys picked Arkansas this weekend or not. I did.
I did.
It just felt like this was the weekend where maybe some of the injury stuff catches up with Texas. B, not first, but by far the biggest road test of the season for Texas. I mean, all of their marquee series wins had come at home. And they had won a couple of road series, but not against a team like Arkansas at a place like Baum Walker Stadium. And so it just kind of felt like, and look, ultimately, I think we all still believe Arkansas might be the best team in the country, given the injuries to Texas. I don't know. I mean, it's, if you had to buy stock today and somebody to win the national title, and I would have said this before this weekend, but I would take Arkansas before I would take Texas if we were having a draft. And that's no disrespect to Texas, who had the best season in the country through 11 weeks, period, full stop. But I love this Arkansas roster. And I know they were coming off 3 straight series losses, but I still love their roster. And I mean, their offense is so formidable, but the way they pitched this weekend, but again, I just think having a healthy Gage Wood now so that, and they're going to continue to lengthen him out, I would think, but he was great this weekend. And then following him up with Gackle. I mean, having Gabe Gackle as a bullpen weapon is a scary proposition, I think, because clearly it seems like for whatever reason, he's just wired for that role. And that's not to say he can't be a starter down the road, but right now he's electric coming out of there, and he can really shorten a game, which is we've all seen how valuable that is in college baseball. The leverage guy, boy. I mean, just ask Arkansas fans about how valuable it was to have, Kevin Kopps. I mean, it's like, I'm not saying he's Kevin Kopps, right? But he's freaking electric. We all know that the stuff is so good. It's 4 real pitches. And so, I mean, to me, that changes the complexion of them a little bit. I mean, Root's been so good at the top of the rotation, and we know, how offensive they are this year. And so I just think that they're an elite team, and they turned in a great weekend at home.
Yeah, I was going to add real quick. I mean, the way they're kind of using Gackle right now, it actually kind of reminds me of the way that Schlossnagle used Chris Cortez last year for A&M.
Yeah,
it's kind of that long relief bridge guy, that elite arm. That's kind of the role that Gackle has right now. But I think Gage Wood over the weekend, with 9 strikeouts and no walks, that was a really impressive start for him. The stuff was elite. And again, like you said, if he is clicking and Root is clicking with that offensive lineup, hard to pick against them. It really is.
Precisely. Yeah. And that's, look, I think Arkansas's best is better than anybody else's best when they're really, because I think what we saw over the weekend was pretty close to their best. And I'm not sure anybody was beating them last weekend, given how well they played against Texas. So certainly impressive stuff. And that feels like a good place to leave this discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for helping me recap week 12 here and playing along with a fun little game. Folks, that is going to do it for this edition of the D1 Baseball Podcast. I want to thank our sponsors, Academy Sports and Outdoors and Tecovas Boots. One more thank you to Aaron Fitt and Kendall Rogers for joining me today. And thank you, the